Welcome back on this Wednesday. State Auditor Diana DiZoglio filing a lawsuit yesterday asking the Supreme Judicial Court to force the legislature to hand over financial documents as part of an audit into lawmakers' businesses. Now today, we heard from DiZoglio herself to find out why 72% of voters gave their support to audit the legislature. Speaking in Springfield tonight, DiZoglio highlighted the fact that Western Mass does not get the same resources as Boston and other larger cities.
You'll often hear your legislators talking about the needs in these communities, and they are working hard to make sure that they're securing resources for this region. But because the Senate President and Speaker wield so much control, members of the legislative delegations out here are really, lining themselves up for punishment if they say they're going to support the will of the people over the Senate President and the Speaker.
The auditor went on to say it's time for the State House to decide if they're going to support the will of the people and have the audit conducted properly to ensure taxpayer-funded facilities can stay in operation.
I actually audit the government for you, the taxpayers, to make sure that your tax dollars are being spent efficiently and effectively. But I can't do that work unless I'm in constant communication with the residents of this Commonwealth so I can get informed about what needs to be examined, where there might be alleged fraud, or where there are issues of concerns in state agencies. So I'm here tonight to let folks know about the work of our office and to invite people to contact my office and speak with us about any issues of concern that we should be focused on in the Office of State.